ALIEUMS After Show, the show that's on after that show about the aliens, called The X-Files. I am your host for this evening. I am Sans Ben because he was abducted by aliens. He is actually sciencing. That's a real term. He says in Nolans right now. Maybe he's working with Scully to try to figure out how to cure the entire world in 10 minutes. So that might happen. But I do have some lovely people with me today. I have Tony, who, as you may know, has been on the show before, and a high school friend of mine where we used to watch the show together, and my mom would give him root beer floats.
Easily won over with sweets.
Yes. He's also not on the grid, so you will not find him anywhere else. And then I also have a very special guest today, a fellow by the name of Curtis Armstrong.
Hello.
You might know him as perhaps Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, or maybe Metatron from Supernatural, or maybe, Mr. Foster from New Girl?
Principal Foster.
Principal Foster.
From New Girl.
New Girl is the principal in New Girl.
Yeah.
And actually, I also really enjoyed you in the Amazon pilot, Heistrom.
Thank you very much, yes.
As,
and of course,
Billy.
the reason that I'm actually here is because of our show, King of the Nerds.
Indeed.
In which I worked with Ben.
Yes.
And that's how I met you.
That's true. And really, this is really the win.
Exactly. Now that Ben is out of town.
Now that Ben's finally gone.
We're seeing each other.
We're hanging
out.
Yes.
We watched the show tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we
together.
Did.
I
yes,
came in.
Did.
It's my first time.
First time on the show.
Yeah.
But you've been a fan for a while?
I've been a fan. Well, I wasn't a fan when it started. I became a fan of the show when my daughter fell in love with it.
Yes.
And then I started watching it because she was watching it.
Yeah.
And then I became utterly obsessed.
Do you know around about what season you started to be obsessed?
I don't know, because actually she wasn't watching it. She was watching it on cassette.
Oh.
I mean on video with Elaine.
Okay,
so it was while it was running, but it was, I don't remember what the season was.
There used to, before technology.
Before
early technology,
yes.
Man, there was these things called VHS tapes, which were like
and we had those.
They were
like
this big. Yeah. They would go in a machine.
They would go in a machine called a VHS player.
Yeah. So this was a long time ago,
Yes.
but then I just fell in love with it, of course, and have been in love with it ever since.
Are you in love with the revival?
I like the revival, and I'll tell you what I think. We haven't had a chance to really talk about it, but my general feeling, I might be wrong, is that I have a feeling when this was conceived, it was conceived longer.
Yes, it was.
It feels. It started about midway through. I was going, boy, a lot of stuff is happening very fast. Even taking into account the fact that the episodes were changed. The running order was changed.
Yes.
It just seemed that. And in the last episode, of course, it's
very
ridiculous.
Fast. Fast forward storytelling.
Everything is happening so quickly, and it's like I felt like the whole idea that Chris Carter maybe originally had was for 12 episodes, twice this, or at least 8.
I know that they were at least going for 8. The hope was 10.
Yeah, because and when you're operating like that, and you have an idea that you have arced over 8 or 10 episodes, and then you wind up, you're going, well, we'll settle for 8, and then you wind up
6
with 6.
You're like, okay,
I mean,
well.
what it requires to accomplish that is enormous. I mean, who knows what was cut out of this in order to accommodate 6 episodes.
And that's the thing, like with My Struggle, the first one, the part 1 is from Mulder's point of view, and My Struggle 2 was supposed to be from Scully's point of view. And My Struggle 1, I felt a lot of that fast forward storytelling, where things were just happening that didn't feel earned. And it was just moving forward, and I felt like there's a lot of missing scenes.
Yep.
Or that these should be this should have been a 2-hour finale kind of feel.
Exactly.
And it should have been a 2-hour premiere as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the thing that Carter talks about, and the thing that the company's talked about, is the twist on the mythology that Carter came up with. And to be honest, I get muddled in my head what the original mythology. It got so kind of convoluted after a while.
Yeah.
So I want some help in figuring out. Okay, so the original mythology was that there were aliens that arrived first on the planet, right?
Yes.
And they lived underground, and that's what, like, the black oil was their blood and sentience, right?
Well, no. So it got activated in the black oil.
Okay.
Like, the black oil wasn't sentient. It just became sentient with the virus in it.
Okay. Is that true? I don't know.
I think
It's
so.
so
I think it's just a
complicated.
vehicle.
But the original idea was that they had arrived first and were planning to recolonize the planet, and there were a group of men that were in cahoots with these aliens,
Right.
in
Yeah.
order to have a seat at the table, to be in charge of the
Right.
rest of the like the end of the world, and that we would be kind of slaves to this
Yeah.
race of aliens.
Hence
and
the bee analogy.
Hence the what?
The
Bees?
bee analogy,
The bees,
right.
yes. The worker bees and such. And now the twist is basically that the aliens got here, and the aliens are kind of the good guys now. In that they saw how
They
destructive
saw where we
man
were
was.
going, and which is like Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that occurred to me when
Oh.
when the Smoking Man started talking about this is what they they came here because they see that what is happening here is what happened on their planets, and they are trying to save you. Is how I interpreted that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big jump.
It's a big, it's a big jump. And the interesting thing is mostly in the mythology episodes is where the tag at the end changes from "the truth is out there" to something else. And this one was a big change in that it said, "This is the end."
Right.
Which, regardless of how we feel that maybe it was executed, I do have to applaud Carter in some ways of at least doing something that activates a mythology versus just talking about what the conspiracy is over and over again or changing it. And then I'm like, okay, well, at least seems to be moving forward on an idea, and it becomes an actual like end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would almost be happy if they come back if like we don't touch this, right? We come back and it's like a year later and it's just how does the world cope with knowing all this stuff?
Right.
And like, how does Mulder, if he's still alive, like strut around like, I've been
he's
talking about this
still
stuff for like
alive.
20 years. Like,
Right.
where you guys been the party?
The biggest issue is if they do, and it seems like they are planning to do another season, how do you reset? Like, does it become a post-apocalyptic show?
Right.
Because you can't have like aliens invaded, tried to kill everybody, everybody's dying.
Yeah.
Maybe Scully can cure some people, but then after that, how do you reset it? And it's like, we're FBI agents chasing a monster in the woods.
Well, one of the things that I think about this, and I'm just reacting because it usually takes me a couple of days to absorb
Sure.
stuff, but my immediate reaction is that one of the differences between the X-Files, the original series X-Files, and this is the original X-Files, whatever in the first season or two, whatever stumbling blocks they encountered, once they understood what they were doing and where they were going,
Yes, of course.
it became something that was of its own creation. It was
Sure.
this unique thing of its time. And it appears to me that what's happening now is it's feeling very much like a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're going to switch X-Files to a post-apocalyptic world, for example,
If it becomes Walking Dead or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's happening. Is you have half a dozen television series. Some of them, I guess, are already canceled. where you have a post-apocalyptic viruses and whatever they are. It doesn't even have to be zombies. Medical post-apocalyptic stories, apocalyptic stories. And this appears to be where they're going with this. And the original mythology isn't even really.
Right. It's in there a little
It's
bit.
in there,
they
but
throw
it's
back
been
to stuff.
it's been so
twisted and turned
that it's hard to follow what the original
Right,
thing
which
is.
I even in trying to recall it, I'm
Right.
like, wait, what was the original thing?
Well, this is where we just learned that Fox just actually had them write 3 seasons of The Strain, and they're like,
Right.
I got to find use for these.
Exactly.
Use it.
Next
Yeah.
season, X-Files. There you go.
So just to go through it and try to find the logic here, it starts with sort of a previously on for my struggle stuff, and it kind of recaps what had happened there.
Which was because you talked about point of view and how
Yes.
this one's Scully's point of view, the other one's Mulder's point of view.
Yeah.
And as soon as she started talking and doing just what happened with Mulder, I was like, oh yeah, these 6 episodes have had no point of view. Like it's just been like kind of meandering and like there's no connective tissue that feels earned.
Yes, okay. They were supposed to, and we had talked about this earlier, they were trying to do in the 6 because they were like, we want to do a mix of episodes and we'll block it with mythology stuff, which the show would do in a full 22 order. It would usually have mythology in between each season. There'd be like there'd be like for Sweeps Week, there'd be like the 2-parter in the middle, and then there would be just one-off Monster of the Week stuff there. And they know that, I think in the mythology getting complicated, it's more fun for people to watch the Monster of the Week kind of things as a fan coming back.
Well, they were a relief. I mean, it was a relief.
It was a relief from the intensity of what happens. And they had originally, the order, when they had talked about trying to connect it with the emotion arc of basically William, and then reflecting upon like the life choices that they had made. And then, when you do that, and then when they go to air and they move episode 5 to episode 2, that means there's no arc.
Right.
That means they're just talking about their kid.
There's one episode with emotion in it because she's, looking, and it's, was deeply emotional and effective for one episode.
Home again.
But it has nothing to do with any kind of an arc.
Yeah. Because the next episode she's like happy-go-lucky, hanging out, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, so it starts and they have all the images are going along, and there's all this stuff about she's a medical doctor. In case you didn't know that, Dana Scully is a medical doctor. And it talks about how she was taken, how she got sick, how she was cured. She was taken and tested on, which is important because she finds through a test that happened in My Struggle Part 1 that she has alien DNA, basically. And this episode starts to talk about the ramifications of that alien DNA, basically.
Except it is then, as I understand it, it's talked about twice in different terms. This is one of the things that I find very confusing about this episode, is that, and we talked about both Mulder and Scully at different points in this 6-series arc, going from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Mulder does it in the first episode with Tad.
He's like,
O'Malley.
I don't know. He's like down and out on his luck, and he has like a weird beard, and then he's just kind of like, I meet this one chick, and then I'm like, oh, I believe again.
Yep, and it's suddenly he's all ready, and he believes everything. And
and then she's just kind of like, I don't know, Mulder's kind of crazy, and then someone's like, people are sick, and she's like, what?
Yeah. So you've
doctor stuff.
You've got two people who are going into like these belief systems that might it would take them a whole season
to get
there, and they're doing it in one episode.
And
one
also,
scene. You're right.
Didn't this guy get
Miller?
Oh, this is Miller?
That's technically Miller because he's baby Mulder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't this guy?
Yeah, sure.
Have some black oil put through him?
That's the other thing that's confusing to me and I think this is the logic that he's going with. So in season 4, Mulder runs away to Russia and he gets caught with Krychek, and then he gets tested and his face is in like this weird mesh. And the Russians, there was an arms race that they were dealing with previously in the mythology where the U.S. was trying to find a vaccine for the black oil, which would enslave everybody to be alien slaves, basically, when they came to recolonize.
And so were the Russians.
So it was like an arms race, and Russia had a vaccine, and the U.S. had one, but it wasn't working. And then Russia had one that worked, and Mulder got exposed to it in this little cage thing, and it works on him, so then he's immune, technically. But then, I think in season 7, when Mulder gets taken, he has, all of a sudden, his brain's freaking out, and he's able to, like, read minds and stuff, and it seems like that alien stuff was activated in his brain.
Right.
So he's able to, which, when you shorthand this, it sounds crazy pants, but, so he can, like, read minds or whatever, and then the smoking guy who's now burnt, but still alive, so good for him. But the smoking guy takes Mulder, tells him he's his dad, basically. Shitty way to learn that guy's your dad. And then he operates on Mulder's brain and like takes out the alien stuff because he thinks it'll save him because he's sick? ? And I think Mulder loses that.
So that explains why he's sick now.
Might explain why he's sick now.
So
that
he didn't
I
have
think.
That.
But then at the same time, I've always thought that the two of them would have a natural immunity, so if they have a kid, the kid would naturally be immune.
Right.
Well, that's what she said.
But the kid's immune because it has her DNA
but they need,
versus mold.
So which she doesn't know. She wouldn't know for sure that the kid has that part. would that necessarily be true? I don't know about the science.
I don't know. See, that's the thing. Ben's a scientist, and he was so mad about all the science in this.
Luckily, science has nothing to do with it.
But I don't. Yeah, there's so much science in it, and I'm like, I don't understand the science of it, so I'm fine. I'm like, okay, whatever. Science stuff is happening.
So now, when
yes.
So the lake episode. Where they throw the cure to every disease into the lake.
Oh yes.
Like what is it? Like a floppy disk?
Yeah, it was kind of it was a small floppy disk. She meets up with the smoking man, and he says he has a cure for like all disease.
Right.
And Ami, I think it was called in season 7.
So if they fish that out, can that fix it?
Scully should be running to that lake.
Yeah.
And then just fishing.
I mean,
and
Miller
Miller
got to like South Carolina and back in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
right.
So good for him. He has a Mustang though, so he can drive real fast.
Right.
All right. So anyway, so the logic then goes: Scully's at work, Mulder's not there. And then she finds his laptop, and Tad O'Malley's spewing about how the end of the world is starting, and
which, by the way, who pays for his show?
Right? Who is
How does he
sponsoring
have
him?
that much? Like, we don't have computers and monitors. And we must have as many viewers as Tad O'Malley.
No, I don't know. It's a good question. We need our own truth squad to fund us. The thing that bothers me in that one scene, though, is that she answers Mulder's ringing phone and she says Mulder's phone. I'm like, girl, it has been 23 years. That is your office, too. Just say it's Agent
And you've
Scully.
had that fight already.
No, it was his phone. It's her office, but they have 2 lines.
All right.
His line and her line.
All right, fine.
She's not his assistant, but she's answering
Can
his
I
phone,
take a
so she
message?
said this is Mulder's phone.
Yeah, I guess so.
There are so many things to be disturbed about in this episode.
Not that.
To be disturbed about that.
Listen, I'm just looking out for the girls, you know?
No, I am too.
I know.
However,
but I understand the logic.
Oh my
It's
God.
fine. Okay, so then you see Mulder's house is trashed. Tad O'Malley's like, we had this secret meeting, and then he's not here. And you learn in that conversation that this whole series has happened in 6 weeks. So he says 6 weeks ago you tested da-da-da. So they almost have been going in real time. Which I'm like, all right. That's fast.
Which would have been if they had kept the originals. But I mean, it's still 6 weeks.
It's still 6 weeks, yeah. And then you go to the FBI real quick, and Einstein's there, and Skinner's there for like, I don't know why Einstein's there. Like, doesn't she live in Texas?
Look, I'll tell you. Einstein is there, as is
Skinner.
but also
Miller.
No,
nope. I'm just gonna keep guessing.
Yeah, the other, what's her name? The other, I'm blanking now. The other FBI agent who tells.
Reyes.
Reyes.
Boom.
Reyes
I finally won.
is there.
Yes.
For the same reason that Einstein is there.
Yes.
Which is to explain to everybody what's going on.
Yeah.
That's it. Why? Now the question is, I understand why she's there with Dana, because she has to tell everybody what's happening, and that way people can understand it.
Yeah.
What I don't understand, and is kind of creepy, is the flashback of her with Smoking Man.
Oh yeah.
And
Monica Reyes with
with Smoking Man,
yeah.
you know, holding the thing up to him in this
sexual.
weird. It was just
You're here
inexplicable.
To light my smokes.
If she makes a deal with Smoking Man, that's one thing. Why is she helping him smoke?
Right.
I think it's just to show that she's like been enslaved by him in some ways, but it doesn't come off that way. It comes off in more of a creep factor.
Right. Like you think she should have just been straight up enslaved, like in a Princess Leia outfit.
Yeah. Yeah. Which. Okay, that's the other thing. I love that she's in that flashback. She's walking down the hallway, flashing her badge like nobody's business. She's like, "My name's Reyes."
And like the hit you over the head. Whoa, they might not know this is a flashback, even though she's sitting at a bench right now in the rain. So let me put this terrible halo around all these scenes.
You know, that to me, I feel like that's just kind of a networky kind of thing you get sometimes of like more sepia. Make it so I can see that it happened in the past.
Yes, they do get a lot of that stuff. So that's understandable.
But people were dealing with, some people were torn about Reyes' motivation if she actually would work for the Smoking Man.
See, here's another reason.
Because she's sort of supposed to be Lady Mulder, so you'd think that she would be like, no. But it seems like she decides to work for me, offers her the chance basically to have a seat at the table and and be safe from what
But what
is
did
going
she
to happen.
do for 10 years?
It seems like she mostly just let him
Actually,
smoke
it's
a
more
cigarette.
than 10 years.
It's been 14.
Yeah.
So she's
She
been,
took a 4-year absence,
Yeah.
went on
I mean,
vacation,
let's say
enjoyed
he-
Earth
let's,
before
you
it was
know,
destroyed.
Let's say he was in a coma for a month.
Sure.
So now we're at 13 years, 11 months.
You know, I'd like to just give her. Maybe she had a year off, took some sabbaticals away, found herself.
I mean, how many cigarettes
backpacked.
does she go on?
You know, it was a lot of cigarettes, and he's clearly capable of smoking.
well, but yeah,
himself,
because
too.
then
Right,
you see
because
him and
he
he's
does
doing
it
it himself.
I'm
He
like,
was
well,
doing. That was
it's a
why
power
it seems.
play.
That is why it seems sexual and creepy.
Yeah.
Is because he is totally capable
And
of
he's calling her
smoking.
Monica, but he calls everybody by their first
Yeah,
name
now
to
he's
be
a-
like a belittling
Yeah.
asshole.
Yeah, but that is why it feels so. It's not because he's incapable. He's making her do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when she says, "I had to make that choice," you know, I had to decide to do this and to play that game with him.
Yeah.
But I was never clear on why.
I think there was supposed to be something about her. I think part of the motivation was that she thought it would keep her safe for people that she
Well,
thought.
yeah. I mean,
like
anybody
her
would.
loved ones safe,
Anybody.
maybe, but-
Anybody would be in that
But
position.
Right,
we
but-
just, yeah,
If he says this is what the ultimatum. If he gives her an ultimatum,
Right.
you're going to die a horrible death,
Right.
or
Sure.
you'll
Right.
be.
Or you'll
help me
let
smoke.
me smoke my cigarette.
we
She's like,
just-
well, is it going
okay.
to get sexual and weird? He's like,
Yeah.
no! And then she's like, fuck. 6 years in, she's like,
right.
now it's sexual and weird.
We just talked about how they had so much real estate to cover
Yes.
and so little time.
Right.
Why would you waste a minute of your 41, 42, whatever it is, on that
CSM.
weird
I
sex
think he
scene?
thinks that it's not a sex scene,
But
but
it's
it's,
an
but I
allusion
think
to a
that he
sex
thinks
scene.
it's a way to like make sure people know like this is the bad guy. Like he
get
spends
it.
his time.
Look, if you're a fan of the X-Files,
you know,
Right.
there is no
Yeah.
way that you. I
you
mean,
see him
And if you're
you're
not
like,
a
cool,
fan,
got
if
it.
you're not a fan of the X-Files, the burned guy with like the Phantom of the Aftermath, like
Right.
creepily smoking out of his neck, he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Which the fans on Tumblr, I did get a picture of it. I hope you guys can pull it up. There's the fans made a picture. It was a Phantom of the Opera picture.
Oh,
So it's the
nice.
guy with the like mask on.
Right.
That the fans were like, so here's CSM now, wearing a mask, rocking it out. Yeah, so he's really creepy. But there was another thing that bothered you before that scene, which was the anti-vaccine idea.
Well, I mean that gets into a whole. I mean that started bothering me in the very first episode when we first met Tad O'Malley.
Yeah.
But by the first half of this finale, I was getting a little annoyed.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. I mean, the politics of X-Files, either sexual or other, are always up for discussion.
Sure.
But what it appears to be saying, and it's hard to get around how it can be saying anything else,
Sure.
is that the right-wing crazies like Glenn Beck and people like that are actually right. And if that's the case, if you have people, the anti-vacciners and all of that, who are
Right.
running around about, saying about how this is, they're deadly, and he's doing something which is basically saying that is
Yeah.
how this is transmitted,
Yeah.
and it was a government. I mean, it is a right-wing conspiracy to
Conspiracy,
end all
crazy
right-wing
thing.
conspiracies.
Yeah.
And why are we doing this now? And it's the whole thing that also we were talking about last week's episode with the wisdom of using jihadist bombers and bumping up against, arguably the funniest
Yeah.
laugh out loud
Type of
sequence,
moments where you're
which
like,
was
"These
just
two in
the-
tone does
it
not
was
work."
tonally absolutely deaf.
Well, I think the thing that's reflected in a lot of Chris Carter's episodes, this revival, is that he has clearly a million ideas and he doesn't know how
Right.
to or where to like spend the real estate in the things
Yeah.
that matter and how to properly execute the idea to where it's clear what's going on.
Well, yeah, that's
which is a writing
it's
issue.
a problem, and it's an understandable problem when
Sure.
you have the backlog of years and years
Yeah.
of developing characters and mythologies
And then you have,
all of that.
your show was on 9 years and you dealt with that forever. You were working constantly.
Right.
And then you take 14 years off and
Well,
essentially
yeah.
don't really do anything
That's-
else. I feel like he's got like an email to himself that's just like alien DNA, vaccination things.
But that's what's
Islam. like
like that's where it seems slightly, and this is too harsh, but like it seems very self-serving, where like if you watch kind of the progression of, and a lot of these shows are X-Files alums too, right? So you watch X-Files, which is all about kind of government level paranoia and that kind of stuff, which leads into 24, which is all about just kind of expanded rights for the government and like everything's okay as long as the good guys win in the end, and then into Homeland, and then like to come back now to where X-Files really was. That part of the fun of rewatching X-Files over the last 15 years is that it stayed very relevant.
Yes, because it was not specific.
Right, and now it's like,
it's too specific.
Yeah, now
right.
now
it's
lost,
obvious.
Like, yeah, exactly.
And the obviousness leaches also it goes from the actual plot lines and arcs or whatever passes for an arc to dialogue.
Yeah.
And everything is so on the nose and labored and specific that, and then you have images. You were talking about Tad O'Malley with the computers and all that. Okay, well that's an example of looking at something which is so common to us now on Fox News and other outlets where you have, the guy, the Glenn Beck guy, or the Rush Limbaugh guy, and he's got the stuff behind him, and they all look the same, and they're lit the same, and they have the same colors, and all of that, and
it's
you know
America.
what you're seeing. Well, you don't even have to hear it to
yeah.
know what you're watching.
Yes.
It's become so much a part of the culture that it's obvious. Now, what he's doing is using it without the subtlety of what made the show, all of those episodes last. Now, as relevant as they ever were, because it was never nailed.
Well, but the nuance is the best point, because like the best episodes are such a fine nuance of, and there's a subtlety to it. Where here it's just not there. That's why the best episode, besides being probably the funnest, is Darren's episode, because it's like it allows for. It trusts the audience.
Right.
It allows for understanding. It assumes that you can get from A to B.
Right.
And then it just has fun.
Which was the Weremonster episode.
The Weremonster.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that in all the mythology stuff, like my favorite arc, I think was from 4 to 5, where it was like there was the idea that the aliens were a hoax, and it was Scully's illness was coming into play, and the chip in the neck like was the thing that like helped to set it back off. Which you were saying it would make more sense that instead of using some of the DNA stuff, you could use the chips that are being used against people, because that's an actual someone as taking somebody and putting a thing into them.
I can see where it's like, well, they didn't abduct everybody.
Yeah,
everyone's parents.
Well, certainly you wouldn't have been able to do the mass.
Illness.
The way that they have ended it now, the climax of illnesses spreading all over the world with the chips.
Yeah.
You could only use it if you use DNA.
Which they actually was, we were talking about this earlier too, was from an early seasons of the X-Files, was from season 2 to 3, I believe.
Which is my favorite run.
Which is a really good one too. It's Anasazi, and Mulder finds these alien... There's a paper clip. Mulder finds alien bodies in a train car that have a smallpox vaccination scar on their shoulder, and he's like, "Oh my God, what have they been testing?" And there's this idea that like humans are the merchandise, and they're in this like encoded document. And Scully finds the chip in her neck then, and she also starts to sequence out smallpox like scars, and there's stuff with DNA in it. Yeah. And so they're throwing back to that from like season 3, which is kind of cool to me to have that come full circle in some ways.
I'd rather have wind talkers.
You'd rather have what?
The wind talkers?
The wind talkers?
Yeah, isn't that the phrase?
The wind talkers.
Yeah, the Native American guys, because it was all written in that random Navajo language.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
It's also a Nicolas Cage movie? I think so.
I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know about it. That's fine. Yeah. There are things about it that I appreciate of throwing back to stuff, but it gets labored in the specifics. You're right about like there's so much talk about the science and the science and the science.
Well, I mean, and
I have no idea what the science is. So
no, clearly Ben is the only person who can talk about that.
But the internet got real mad about that. Not real mad, but there were people that were just like, this isn't. Someone made the meme of and we showed a picture of it of someone saying that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Right.
Like from that Geico commercial or something.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where it's just Scully's face and it yells science across it. And that's all I hear in those scenes. I go, all right, they're talking science.
Do you know anything about the authors of the screenplay, the two doctors?
No.
Of what's these actually okay, so the two doctors that are used, one of them is Anne Simon, who's been the science advisor forever on the X-Files, and she's friendly with Chris, and she was the one that helped to throw it back to older ideas, which I think she's talking about the splicing, how oh my god, if Ben's watching this he's gonna want to murder me, but it's like there's proteins this is fun for me to try to figure out. There's like proteins in your sequence, and they were realizing that it can't be that they added alien DNA to it. It has to be that something's being taken out. So there's a thing called like a crystallization or something, and it cuts science, and it cuts the RNA gene, right? Out. I'm like making it up.
I think
feel
it cuts
like
something out of RNA.
It cuts something out of it that makes you then have an illness, and it gets you sick.
The potential to have an illness. The potential
to have an illness.
Right.
But Scully's immune because when she was taken, she was somehow has like a protein coat on it, science, and she's now immune. Yeah. Which, if you do think about, does that mean all the people that were taken are they all the elite? Because if you think about all those people who've been abducted, those people are crazy.
But but then also he says, we can start over. Right. Smoking Man says
he's being very selective about it.
Right. Well, of course. I mean, it's an old science fiction dystopian society idea. It's Dr. Strangelove. It's that same idea. Right. Well, we're going to take all the women and the cattle and go into the mines. And
so here's a question: if you were going to be the Smoking Man and you could handpick your the people you would have survive, celebrity wise, who would you be like? That one's cool. I want you to stay. You bye. I feel like I'd be like Shia LaBeouf. I'm fine. You're fine. Bye.
He's gone.
I'm not saving him.
Well, clearly Chris Carter would keep Tony Gilroy, Matt Damon, anyone involved in the Bourne Identity, since he'd just seen that movie and threw in that Molder scene where it's like, I'm gonna choke you out with this windowsill.
Yeah. I feel like you would want never mind the celebrities, but you'd want it doctors probably. You'd want smart people.
Well, yeah, I mean it's
stay. And then you'd want your friends.
So now you're just dumbing it down.
I know. See, that's the problem. I got to be more cutthroat about it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I guess Tony because he's here.
You always need those backup podcast guests.
Right? Ben, I guess I'd say Ben.
Well, kind of.
Yeah. Ben would have to be the scientist that was saving the world. Which there was a lot of people
Hopefully
who were
it's a water thing then.
It has to be a water thing so you can save me with water science. I don't know. So then, so she's trying to figure out, she figures out that it's alien, they say alien DNA. I wish there was a counter going to how many times they said alien DNA, just dinged each time.
Yeah.
It must be I feel like it's at least double digits.
Yeah, it was crazy. But it's funny how they did the pacing, because there's some genuinely interesting things that got thrown away in Thad O'Malley. They're giving this, people are getting activated, their illnesses are getting activated through microwaves and through this dispersal through the sky.
Chemtrails.
Yeah, things that would be entire X-Files episodes.
Right.
And have been.
Right.
Yeah. And would be really interesting.
Yeah.
If there was just a chemtrails episode. If this was just about a chemtrail that got
right. They could actually do that.
Yeah. They started it in this small town and that's where the activation happened. And
that's part of the problem when you try to do end of the world, bigger things in a TV budget is it's always scaled down so you can actually pull it off. So they used him talking in images as a way to show what was going on with the world, and then you see a crowded hospital, and then we have
and that one guy looting.
One guy trying to loot, and Scully's like, no, and he listens to her? I don't think so. I in my head I'd like for him to be like, are you Gillian Anderson? Oh my god, that's crazy.
Wait, are you a doctor?
Are you a medical doctor? Okay, I will not loot.
Yeah, listen to a doctor.
They waited 2 seconds for her to leave, and they were like, great, grab the stereos, grab the TVs, let's get out of here. But yeah, you're right, there's a lot of other little things that get just full steam ahead right through.
Those are the things where you would imagine if there were actually sitting down and like rebeating this, they'd be like, okay, what, like, because this was clearly just like
this whole 6 run, though, to your point, could have been 6 mythology things. If they really did 1, 2, and then this in 2, like, it could then be more, I think, cohesive or easily to follow.
I think
instead
so.
of just going, wait, what's going on?
Well, that's part of the problem, and it has nothing to do. Unfortunately, that has nothing to do with Chris Carter. One of the. I mean, that has to do with the network making a decision.
Right.
And but then he has to accommodate that.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention though is about Miller and Einstein.
Yes.
Is their presence in these last 2 episodes that were aired.
Yes.
Gives you a sense of how much screen time Mulder and Scully would have if you were actually doing Mulder and Scully episodes instead of episodes that involve other people.
Yeah.
And that when you have separated them for the length of time that they've separated them in this run of 6, it really is, it also makes you realize it's like you say, okay, I'm going to do 6 episodes of Sherlock Holmes, and I'm going to have Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, and I'm going to keep them apart as much as possible.
Yes.
That's kind of what they...
He has an aversion, because My Struggle, they don't have that. They have a couple, like 3, or they have a bunch of scenes, but then even in Babylon, he splits them up so that they can hang out with baby Mulder and Scully and have scenes with like younger versions of themselves. And then this one, they literally are not in any scenes together until the last minute, which is like a classic Chris Carter move.
Right.
Where it's just like, you guys really want to see Mulder and Scully, right? Well,
here they are. And they take that last shot of her looking up, which goes back to the bridge with the, which I appreciated. I thought that was a nice way to
That's a cool shot,
end it.
and you see that, like, at least they're together and experiencing the alien phenomenon
Except,
for once. And
she's not going to remember. She's not going to remember.
She's going to be like,
but
what?
the other part of it was that they are together, except they're not experiencing it together.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the car, half dead, and she's the one who's out there looking up the way she did before. And she's having that experience. It's not being experienced together. That we can see.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like she's here and he's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Huh?
Imagine, why is she standing there with Miller instead of Mulder?
And Miller, like, he doesn't do anything except for just be like a puppy
Well, he's just
be like, I'm gonna go get your boyfriend and bring him back.
They don't have time. They haven't had time for those 2 characters to develop at all.
So you don't care about them.
And so you don't care about them.
Right.
They're just there to explain or ask questions so they can be explained too.
Yeah. Which also, I'd like to say, those 2 agents super lucked out because they literally just met Mulder and Scully like last week.
Right.
And now they're like, hey, you have a cure for the end of the world? Cool.
Right.
I'm so glad I just met you.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Can you, while I'm going to help you out with that genome thing you're doing, can I
Fortunately,
get me some of that
she's
alien
as brilliant
DNA?
as Scully is in
Yeah.
the same
Well,
area.
Her name is literally Einstein, so...
But, like, why not...
It's a little obvious.
Why not... And a distant relative, I want to do some, like, genealogy. I want to see how many male, like, sons he had, just to make sure that name stayed. Like, that's a bit crazy to me. Anyway.
That Einstein...
Oh, then she's actually related to
Yeah.
A distant relative,
but, like,
perhaps.
It's... I feel like it would have been... It probably would have been better. Can't say definitely would have. But, like, if they could have self-selected down... Where the heck was Mitch Pileggi? Where was Skinner?
Yeah.
I know.
Like, why wasn't Skinner the one going to South Carolina or whatever to get Mulder?
He should have been getting Mulder. And then he could have, like, punched CSM in his face, would have, like, knocked around and would have been like, yes!
But you're like, why have him on this show? He's done
Well,
nothing.
that was the big discussion from last week, is why you bring back the lone gunman.
For a gratuitous scene for a
really
second.
Nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Carter would say, well, the lone gunman will be back, and so everybody's waiting for the lone gunman.
He's had a
Rather,
huge mistake of
not
doing
do
that.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah.
When it happens, then it's an Easter egg for the fans. And they go, oh, look, it's the, you know.
Yeah.
But to put them in it just for that little thing, they have no lines, nothing, you know.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean...
It was a disappointment.
Yeah.
That just sums it up right there.
It's just a little bit of a disappointment right there. I don't know. I mean, part of me is, I think this was better than the first one, than My Struggle, to me.
You mean...
Because at least they're kind of doing things, like, the conversation between Mulder and CSM was an interesting conversation.
But it's a conversation they've had before.
I know, but it's like
there's not really anything new to it. They know who. It's not like he's discovering anything new about Smoking Man, except Smoking Man is, got all of this.
He's got
all the power now.
But what I actually really love is that so he literally, his skull burnt, like his face got burnt in the what was series finale, or the season 9 finale of The Truth. At the very end, he gets like torpedoed, and his face burns, and you see like his skull for a second, and now you see him, and he's just like burnt.
Yeah.
And Carter was also like, that'll be explained. I'm like, no, it's not. Like,
well,
it would have been explained better if it was like, oh, that was like a clone or something. Like even that, I would have been like, oh, he's got
that's
like,
all you'd need.
Right?
Is another twist. That there are actually clones involved, and that way you can get to Orphan Black and all the other shows yet another show that is current.
What if this episode just ended and Mulder woke up in bed and was like, oh my god, Scully, I just had the craziest dream, and she's like, what?
Yeah,
and
it's the Bob Newhart show. Yeah, end it that way.
Yeah.
Instead
they just didn't end it.
And of course.
Well,
the best way to not... Here's the thing, too, though. Within sci-fi shows, and I watched Battlestar Galactica, Lost was always at its best when I didn't know what was happening. As soon as they explain things, it becomes less cool because it's the like Jaws phenomenon, where as soon as you see the shark, it's less scary. If you only see a fin or a shadow, you're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But as soon as you're revealed, Battlestar was really cool, but the end, it was like... It was hard for them to tie in things, and they tried to tie certain things in, and then it became a little bit of like a God thing too, and it was like,
that show,
which is a fantastic show, but at the end it's so hard to close out shows that are about these extreme things, and that's my worry with him, is like so many people have been showing up to see what he does, and I keep giving him slack, and he keeps hanging himself with it in my mind, Chris Carter being the he, it sounds so cliche, and I'm just going to say it. I want to believe that he is a better writer, that he would do a better job, but I'm worried about, as much as I want to see what happens and see what a season 11 would possibly be, are they just fast forwarding and it's post-apocalyptic? Like, how do you pick up the pieces?
But the Jaws analogy is great because the shark didn't work, and they had to figure it out.
And that's a great,
and it's the same thing. She got pregnant
in season 2,
and they hit something, and they ran with it.
Yeah. Right. And then now it's just sort of like,
it's interesting because when he starts off that show, he's somebody who had a history in television, but he was also, starting off with something that was totally new. They were totally new. Yeah. It was, starting off at, ground zero and working their way through it. Yeah. And we loved discovering everything as he was discovering it, and they were growing into the characters.
Well, now I feel like he feels like he's he's like the cigarette smoking man who's like, I have all the answers and I know what everything is, and everyone's like, no, thank you.
And the two of them are iconic actors, and everybody knows them and loves them on other things as well, and so there's so much that is to be expected in something like this. There's almost no way that he can live up to those expectations.
No, of course not. But it would be nice that if he knew when they knew where they were going, there was a way to close it out that felt like there's closure. And I think the reason why the fandom is so crazed and loves to talk about the series and what it did for TV, and but like the way it questions, the world in some ways. We love it and we get obsessed with it because there never really was an ending. Like it ended, but there wasn't and then they had the movie, and then that didn't really address like the 2012 thing, and they kind of addressed 2012 here, where it's like, oh, this is when this...
It started in 2012.
It started, but what started? They activated DNA in people?
Yeah, but I think your point is great, because we went from this wonderful journey of discovery to now a kind of dictation. Like literally.
Right.
This happened, and then this happened, and then in season 2 I got abducted, and then in season 3 this happened, and then this... And it's just, the spirit's not there.
No, it isn't.
Yeah,
and I think, and I'm saying that I'm sounding like I don't like, like I haven't enjoyed it.
Well, that's the thing that's the toughest thing about the X-Files, is you can be really hard on it, but it's still like your kid, and
it's still almost
like,
better than anything.
I still love you.
And that's the thing. That's one thing about it, is that it's better than so much else on television. But what I feel in the long run about what this was, to me, these 6 episodes were like a sizzle reel
Yes.
for the actual season that would come.
Yeah.
In the best of all worlds.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they're showing, you can imagine, this the coming attractions for the next season when it comes.
Which, please, Vince Gilligan, please come back. Also, Frank Spotnitz, I would love for you to come back because that's the main thing that's missing in Chris's writing with the mythology. There's no Frank, and I feel like you can tell.
That's right.
So yeah.
But that's what it feels like to me. It feels like a sizzle reel. I look back on it. I'll remember those moments,
Yeah.
But the bulk of it is not what.
I know. I feel like
it just feels too crammed in and too rushed.
Yeah. I feel like the X-Files has like this shackle over me where it just owns me, and I will watch it regardless.
I like the second movie. I don't care. I like
it on some days. I like
Listen,
it.
I watched the second movie recently, and it was a lot better than I remember it.
Right.
When you have
you take the baggage away from it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and also when you're not seeing it in a theater and you're seeing it on television, which is what it really is meant to be watched on.
Right. I just want, can we just have, like, the whole thing, there was no reason to break them up, to me, in this.
Well,
they acted like non-couple in the beginning, they was like, we're arguing, and then the rest of the series is like, they're acting like they're basically a couple, and then I'm thinking, well, maybe in this one, there's some moment where he's literally dying, and she's coming over to him, she's like, I'm here, I'm gonna save you, and he's like, cool, I'm dying, and there's not even, like, a moment of like a real connection between them.
No,
and
because she's busy. She's too busy talking to Miller again.
Yeah,
she's saying, "Oh, he's worse off than I thought."
Which now she needs the stem cells, and she's got to find her son William. And
I mean, it's just.
There's been a lot of talk about William. It makes sense to me that they were making him the solution. I thought it would be cooler if he like showed up.
He's gonna pop out of the ship.
Yeah, right. He's gonna pop out of the ship, and we're all gonna be like, William, and then they're just gonna fast forward, and they're gonna skip through fields, and it's gonna be fantastic. So there you have it. There's my struggle too. It has been a struggle. # the struggle is real. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, if there is a season 11, Chris Carter, you can talk to me about it because I have some notes. And we will hopefully be here to continue to watch it. Tony is not on the grid. I am on the grid at Lady Fantastic on Twitter. You can also find me with all my various vines, which I don't know what I'm going to do with my life now that I don't have X-Files to make vines out of. I'm sure I'll figure out a way to do it. And Curtis,
I'm Curtis's Booger on Twitter.
Yeah. Really owning the Revenge of the Nerds situation there.
Well, I have no choice.
Right, it's fine. It is what it is. Just own it. Thank you for watching. Don't get abducted, you guys. And hopefully we'll see you for season 11.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just gotta own it,